Writer, director, actor, and artist John Waters has been making avant-garde cinema since the 1960s. His movies have pushed boundaries and shocked audiences with their wild characters and surreal storylines, even as they offer piercing insights into popular American culture and society. While he experienced mainstream crossover success by the 1980s and into the 2000s, and has been embraced by many in the entertainment industry, John Waters is inherently an outsider, and I suspect he wouldn't have it any other way. He is a unique, visionary queer voice in American cinema, so for one of our 2025 Pride specials, The Great Pop Culture Debate looks back on 8 of the Pope of Trash's most notorious movies and attempts to name the best John Waters film. Just like the Virgin Mary statue owned by Pecker's Me Mama, I am also full of grace. Grace is the name of the discount liquor of which I am fond. I'm your host, Eric Resniak. Please welcome my panelists for this episode. Before I introduce our first panelist, I have one question. Johnny Minogue, do you recycle?
No, I don't have room in my kitchen.
Well, Beverly Sutphin may have something to say about that. Next, please welcome the first of our guests for this episode. She's the host of the It's a Fandom Thing podcast, and she has spent all day teasing her hair and thinking about racial integration. It's Erin Marlowe. Welcome back, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're delighted to have you. And finally, please welcome back to the podcast Joshua Grinnell, perhaps better known as alternative drag icon Peaches Christ, host of the Midnight Mass podcast. Welcome back, Joshua. Have you had any female troubles lately?
Yes, actually, constantly. When you've decided that in order to best present as female, you must wear a corset, 7 wigs, and high heels, it causes a lot of trouble.
That is some female trouble, seriously. Thanks you so much for joining us. And up in the producer booth, we have Bob Erlenbach, who is being a real crybaby. If you're curious about how we ended up with this Elite 8, become a Patreon supporter of our little show or listen to the 3-minute preview available wherever you listen to podcasts. I do want to make a special pitch for our Patreon warm-up for this episode in which we discussed the 4 full-length John Waters films not included in this bracket. It was a really insightful discussion, and Peaches in particular, who is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you are a personal friend of Mr. Waters, correct?
That's right, yes. It's surreal as it is to say, yes.
Yeah, has some really great insights into those films and specifically their kind of impact on Peaches as an artist, as a character, etc. So please do become a Patreon supporter. You can actually do that for free now over at patreon.com. Otherwise, don't forget that you can head to this episode on greatpopculturedebate.com to find the listener bracket so you can play along with us at home. While you're there, check out some of our other related episodes, including Best Gay Icon, Best Queer Film, and Gayest Music Video. And with that out of the way, get ready to eat literal shit as we get into these debates. First up, the panel unanimously decided to embrace the curves and interracial swerves of one-seed Hairspray, the original 1988 version, which meant that two-seed Pecker's chances in the bracket were flaccid. But I do want to briefly talk about Pecker before we move on. I somehow missed this when it was initially released, which is weird because I love John Waters even at that time. It was 1998. I saw it subsequently, and it's a really sweet film. I think it's one of his sweetest films. It felt a little bit autobiographical to me. Is that true, Peaches, that there are parts of John in this?
I think so. I mean, I think, yeah, it's kind of pretty clear that the way that Pecker sees Baltimore and what he enjoys about Baltimore is completely in line with John's pride around being from Baltimore and being proud of the things that maybe normies wouldn't be.
Yeah, and it comes through. I mean, the film literally ends with Pecker being like, well, maybe I'll make movies. And like, to me, it's just like, ta-da. But it's a sweet film. It really is kind of heartwarming. Johnny, had you seen it?
Of course, Mary, I've seen it. I just for full of grace, the Lord is with thee. I mean, seriously. And
yeah, of course.
Christina Ricci working in a laundromat. What else do you need in a movie?
Yeah, and Edward Furlong. Aaron, are you a fan of Pecker? I should clarify the film.
Who isn't?
What conversation is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have only seen it like a couple of times. But I agree what you said, Eric, this is a lot sweeter than maybe some of John's other work. And that's what struck me the most about this is it feels very kind isn't the right word, but it feels like this kind of like this, I don't know, love letter to himself. Like you're saying, like kind of like appreciation for himself
And
in a
art.
way that maybe and art. Yeah. But himself as an artist.
Yes.
And finding himself through art. So.
And like the best John Waters movies, it's also a pretty good read on American culture, and specifically the way that the art world tends to codify and try to mass market outsider artists. And I thought that was a really pointed and well taken critique. It's a lovely film. It's like the most wholesome of the John Waters movies, I think. Yeah. It's just up against Hairspray. And so with that being said, Hairspray will move into round 2. Next, the panel is evenly divided between 2 of John Waters' films dealing with crime and fame, 1990's Crybaby, a 1 seed, and 1974's Female Trouble, a 2 seed. Aaron, sing us a few bars about why we should love prison musical Crybaby even after lockup. Peaches, are you ready to die for art, or at least to deliver a compelling argument for Female Trouble? I'm going to have Peaches go first here.
Oh, I think for me it's kind of a no-brainer because, I think in a John Waters competition, which I guess this sort of is, I think when you're pitting any movie with Divine against a movie without her, it's very hard to not choose the film with Divine, especially Female Trouble. I mean, her portrayal of Dawn Davenport is so epic. And not only does she show up as Dawn Davenport, she also shows up as the father of her child, Earl Peterson. You've got Mink Stoll as Taffy. And it's the final film that really had all of the Dreamlanders still there on camera and behind the camera. And so I'm talking about Edith Massey, David Lockery, Mary Vivian Pierce, Van Smith stepping up and doing all of those amazing costumes, the makeup, the hair, the fashion that Dawn Davenport sports was knocked off by fashion designers. This to me is quintessential underground genius filmmaking. And Crybaby was more of a studio film, more of a Hollywood. I mean, it wasn't a studio film, but you know what I mean. It had Hollywood actors. I don't know. To me, I don't know how anyone could choose anything over Female Trouble.
Well, that being said, Aaron, you were picking Crybaby.
Defend yourself.
Well, here's the thing. I think Female Trouble is the better film. The reason I chose Crybaby is a totally personal one. This movie owned my heart when I was a young teenager. And I remember, bless my mom who was like one of those great, wonderful moms who embraced all the weirdo friends I had and was like a surrogate mom. And she drove me and my friend in this pouring torrential downpour of a thunderstorm where like you couldn't even see the lines of the road to go see this movie because I wanted to watch it for the 3rd or 4th time. And there was only one theater playing it. So for me, even though, it is not the better of the two, so I understand, but I had to vote with my heart because of the fact that it was like, oh my gosh, this is like the kind of musical love story that I would prefer to see. And Johnny Depp's character was like totally the guy I would fall for. And everybody, all the other characters and adding the music in and just kind of this like rebellious punk vibe almost to it in a way. And that's why I had to choose it. It just owned my heart when I was a kid. So.
Okay, that's totally. Hey, listen, everyone's rubric is different. Johnny, is it going to be Female Trouble or is it going to be Crybaby for you?
I just rewatched Female Trouble 2 nights ago, and I remember why I loved it, and so much that I put on my cha-cha shoes with me. So the power of Divine. I think Peach has said it. It's hard to have a movie with Divine go up against a movie without Divine, especially when it kind of has a similar era vibe, but even though for totally different types of movies. But I think it's got to be Female Trouble, especially if we're talking about the best John Waters movies.
Yeah, nice girls don't wear trash high heels, Johnny. I just want to point that out.
Well, good thing I'm not a nice girl.
There you go. I'm totally voting for Female Trouble here. I initially, I think on the bracket I had put Crybaby because I was like, no one's going to vote for it. And I at least wanted to talk about it. And I do think the music in Crybaby is really good. I think it's actually, if we're looking at his more commercial films, I think a kind of his undiscovered gem. And I think that everyone in it is terrific. Hatchet Face is an amazing character. But if we're talking about the best John Waters film, and I'll save this argument for round 2, boy, you don't get much better than Female Trouble. It is like... hitting the stride. And I think that Peaches' point, like it was the last kind of final hurrah for the entirety of the Dreamlanders, cannot be discounted. That is, everyone is on their A game in that movie. And I think it might be Divine's best performance in a John Waters film. Just putting that out there. But we'll be moving Female Trouble into round 2. Next, it's another unanimous decision on behalf of the panel, which is moving forward one seed Serial Mom from 1994, making a fashion victim of 1981's Polyester, a 2 seed. But Johnny, you wanted to say something about Polyester before it goes out. Thank God it's resistant to stains. Johnny?
Well, thank God, especially because Mr. Fishpaw works at a XXX movie theater. I think it's one thing I love about Polyester. It's like the bridge film between the 70s just chaos of the Divine and the things like Female Trouble and Desperate Living, and then going into the Hairsprays and the Crybabies. It kind of bridges that, and then but it still has the shock that you'd expect with Lulu Fishpaw being the big whore around town, and then Dexter being the Baltimore foot stomper. It still has that real messed up, fucked up world that you still love about John Waters. And I have to give a shout out to LaRue, who played Francine's mother, because she does the best, worst Betty Davis impression of anyone ever in cinema. They couldn't get Betty Davis because they didn't have the money, but let's just get Baltimore's second best dinner theater version of Betty Davis on here. And it brought back Tab Hunter. That was like a great part for his career. It shot him back up out of obscurity. And I feel like it's overshadowed by some of his other movies because it doesn't have as many iconic moments as some of those other top movies that he's done before and after, but it's still damn funny. It's still damn gross, and it has a great fucked up happy ending with Edith Massey coming to save the day. So good job, Polyester. I will hang you out to dry though.
Yeah. The other thing, Peaches, I wonder if you have any thoughts about this. This was also him really playing with the form of cinema and kind of having a laugh with the whole odorama thing, right? Like, who else is going to do this but John Waters?
Or William Castle. And I think, John, his book Shock Value, which was my Bible growing up when I discovered it, really introduced me to his heroes, which then became my heroes because he loved William Castle and Herschel Gordon Lewis and, Ted V. Michaels and Russ Meyer so much. I was introduced to those filmmakers through him. And of course, I created Midnight Mass out of a love for those sorts of gimmicks, the live events, and my love for what I assume it must have been like to go see a William Castle movie, with I don't know, the Tingler, shocking you in the seats or whatever. So I think with John, was such a great way for him to, sort of create a love letter to William Castle, and Odorama was brilliant and hilarious, and it worked, and it's super fun, and I'm really grateful I was able to screen this movie multiple times with the Odorama cards, with full audiences scratching and sniffing, and I love, this was a very, very tough choice because I love Polyester. I echo everything that was already said. It's a great movie. It's an amazing movie. It's his melodrama. It's his Douglas Sirk entry. And it is where Divine actually really shows that, the first 3 Divine films, Lady Divine, Babs Johnson, and Dawn Davenport, are very wildly unhinged, over the top, crazy, insane, performances, but they very much feed into the Divine drag character. This does not. Francine Fishpaw is where Divine shows you, I'm a fucking actor. Watch this. And look at what I'm willing to look like in drag.
She really did act circles around everybody else in that movie. It's like she was a standout in that movie.
She's amazing.
She was so good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of the great what ifs, right? Like, what if we still had Divine with us? Like, what would that career look like now? I bet you it would be incredible. Aaron, anything you want to say about Polyester before we let it go?
I want to echo what's been said about Divine in that, because I think that that her performance in that is at a very different emotional and vulnerable level. And to see that vulnerability when before it was the wild over the top characters was so striking to me the first time I watched it. And the first time I watched it was a few years ago, prepping for a John Waters episode, and I hadn't seen it, and it was one of those blind spots. And I'm really glad that I finally watched it because of her performance mainly. The vulnerability there. To be vulnerable on screen is a gift and not easy to do. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so all those things being said, we're kicking it out of the competition, and we are moving forward Serial Mom, which we will talk about in round 2. Finally, in round 1, it's one more unanimous decision by the panel, which is advancing 1972's Pink Flamingos, a 1 seed, over the very first Waters full-length film, 1969's Mondo Trasho. Does anyone want to recycle some opinions about Trasho? Peaches, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think obviously there was no competition. When you're putting up a movie like Mondo Trasho, which is really a showcase of potential talent, I think. But it doesn't have sync sound. It's really great in the canon of understanding what this giant career was made of. And you look at something like Mondo Trasho and realize like how innovative they had to be with such little resources. So I think for no other reason, it's fascinating to go back and watch it. But it's not going to compete with a lot of the other films. And of course, if you read about it, it's fun to read about what the guerrilla filmmaking led to as far as them all being arrested. And, the behind the scenes stories around it are so amazing. So it's a really interesting film. It's fun to see the reality of their lives at that time, but you can't put it up against Pink Flamingos.
No. By the way, it is, if you have not seen it, it is available on the interwebs. If you look, it's not that hard to find. It is an interesting film, but I agree that it's not necessarily the best film. And so therefore, we will be moving Pink Flamingos into round 2. And that's the end of round 1. We're going to take a quick break to scratch our Odorama cards and go on a bender with our polyester queen, Francine. We'll be right back.
Is Captain Picard objectively the best Star Trek captain? Did The Sopranos really need that ending? These are the questions that keep us up at night. Welcome to the Great Pop Culture Debate, where passion meets pedantry. We dissect, we digress, and occasionally we devolve into glorious geeky chaos. But we can't do it without you. Support the Great Pop Culture Debate on Patreon and unlock a treasure trove of bonus content, early access to episodes, exclusive bonus debates, and the chance to finally weigh in on that great Die Hard Christmas movie debate. Is it? Is it? Join the conversation. Support the Great Pop Culture Debate on Patreon, because some debates, well, they just need to happen.
And we are back for round 2 of our Best John Waters Film Debate. Before we get into the final 4, I want our panelists to share their social media accounts and what else they're working on. Johnny, where can people find you? What you doing?
I am on everything as Johnny Minogue, one word, no H, just like Kylie and Danny. I host trivia every single week, Tuesday night at Club Cafe in Boston at 8 p.m. So join us. Book your table today. And yeah, it's great fun. That's where I met Eric.
That's right.
That's right. And I also once a month host a radio show every Friday, fourth Friday of the month on WZBC at Boston College, 90.9 in the Boston area. And also, I'm going to be one of the main hosts at SparkleCon this summer in Chicago as one of the marquee trivia hosts. So I'm going global. So I'm excited for that. So that's what I've been working on and working with the Boston Gay Men's Chorus.
You better fucking work, SparkleCon. That's amazing. Good for you.
Thanks, babe.
Erin Marlowe, welcome back. It's so nice to see you. And tell us, where can people find you? What you got going on?
You can find my main podcast. I also co-host 2 other podcasts, but my main podcast, It's a Fandom Thing, at it'safandomthingpod.com, and we have over 500 episodes. And we do have an episode talking about John Waters that we did a couple of years, 2 or 3 years ago. And so you can find that one there along with everything, running the gamut. So film, television, music, everything you can possibly think of, we have over there. And that's where you can find all the socials as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Peaches Christ, it's so nice to have you back. Where can people find you? What are you working on?
Well, I'm at peacheschrist.com. Imagine that. And I'm really keeping the website up to date and current because I don't currently trust social media. And
Yes.
I'm at any moment prepared to be, X'd out forever. Of course, I've had to leave some of those platforms because of my political views. So, I'm pushing my own website less than the social media, but obviously I'm on some of the social media, and you can find me there. But yeah, I think as far as what would be of interest to your listeners related to this episode, it just occurred to me that I'm doing one of my idol worship shows this summer in Provincetown for Bear Week. And Mink Stole, that's a show that Mink Stole and I do together. And there will be a very special guest in the audience who has confirmed he's going to attend. And there's nothing more stressful than talking about your idol with another idol on stage while said idol sits in the audience listening to the two of you. So if you want to see me squirm, in the presence of Mr. Waters with Mink Stole for a one night only happening, you can check out Idol Worship at peacheschrist.com.
Done and done. I see Johnny Minogue already booking his tickets as we speak.
I live in Boston. It's easy. I will take the ferry over for one night. I have my VHS copy of Serial Mom that I would love to get Mink Skull to sign.
Yes, absolutely.
I already got John to do it. So.
Oh, yeah, she will be happy to.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being part of this. We couldn't do a John Waters episode without you, and we're really grateful that you're sharing your time with us.
I'm thrilled to be here.
The best place to find us is on Blue Sky at gpcd.bsky.social or at gpcd on Mastodon. You should also make sure to subscribe to our page on YouTube, where we're planning to put up more original video content, although we haven't really done that yet. But what you really need to do is to sign up for our weekly newsletter, new every Tuesday at noon. It tells you about everything that's coming out in pop culture that week. Sign up by finding the link on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or via our link tree on any of our social media accounts. Now let's get into round two, which better come with some black leather cha-cha heels, or else Don Davenport is going to fuck up this Christmas. The panel is split between 1-seed Hairspray and 2-seed Female Trouble. Aaron, make like Motormouth Maybelle and tell the children what they need to know about Hairspray. I will make an appointment with the Lipstick Beauty Salon and begin my career as a crime model as I defend the chances of Female Trouble. Aaron, please go first.
Oh man, this was another one for my childhood too, was Hairspray. And watching it and idolizing Ricki Lake, honestly, was who I ended up idolizing after watching this. And seeing her have such confidence when she was such an outsider and treated like such trash by people. And that confidence was something I so desperately wished I had at that time in life. So kind of just idolizing her in that. I just, everything about this, I think for Gen X, and I don't know if everybody else Gen X agrees, I think for us, we had kind of this weird fascination with this time period with the late 50s, early 60s, and then also late 60s. And this kind of played into that, where it wasn't so much romanticizing it in the same way. And this is also just a very sweet love story that also has little bits and touches of that John Waters, filth, but not in the same way. And but I loved the little touches that were added in. And I'm a sucker for a good love story too. So it also captured that. And it just captures a moment in time. And it went on, I think, to be arguably one of his most successful pictures, and then also, of course, spinning off the musical and everything. And I mean, we won't, of course, talk about the musical adaptation necessarily, but which I like it, but so yeah.
I mean, I'll say this: number one, Hairspray is a great movie. It is. If you're talking about the commercial and critical success, Hairspray is probably his biggest mainstream success from those perspectives. And it's also notable, like having a one property be successful in one iteration is kind of like lightning striking. Having it be also a hugely successful Broadway musical is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And then again, as a successful film version of the Broadway musical, like this is a great work by John Waters. There is no discounting that. But if we're talking about the best John Waters film, there is no more John Waters film, I think, than this one, which is Female Trouble. Now, you're saying Pink Flamingos. My argument here is this is kind of the culmination of the work that he'd been doing up through Pink Flamingos, up through Desperate Living. And I think Female Trouble is everybody in that Dreamland production firing on all cylinders, and it is absolutely chock full of iconic moments. Yes, there's the Christmas meltdown with the cha-cha heels, which is now every year memed at Christmas time. We all love it. But honestly, after that, what other director but John Waters would have a sequence in which Divine, out of drag, has aggressive public sex on a dirty outdoor mattress with Divine in drag? Amazing. No other directors but John Waters would have a scene in which that teenage character gives birth to her child and rips the umbilical cord apart with her teeth. The toolbox sex scene, the acid in the face, the sociopathic upper-class salon owners using the poor and desperate as their personal entertainment, the incredible sequence in which Divine, at her most divine, is doing a trampoline act in drag, rubbing fish all over herself, and then the total break with reality and subsequent murder, ending in that really brilliantly acted prison sequence with her at the end. Like, it is quintessential John Waters and just an amazing movie. Nothing against Hairspray, but to me, this is like signature John Waters. So well done. Johnny Minogue, is it going to be Female Trouble or is it going to be Hairspray for you?
I'm going to go with Female Trouble. I think that with all of the arguments that Aaron made, I think I agree 100%. I started watching it after watching her talk show in the 90s. I was a little younger, but that's how I got obsessed with it. But Female Trouble is just the culmination of like you said, it's just everything that the earlier John Waters put together, and it does it in the most disgusting way ever. So I'm gonna have to go with Female Trouble.
Peaches Christ, is it Female Trouble or Hairspray for you?
I will say this is actually tougher for me than it might seem. I'm going to go with Female Trouble. I'm sure that doesn't surprise anyone, but Hairspray is so great. It is so great. And Ricky is so brilliant in it. And actually, it's kind of a perfect film. I mean, it's hard it's weird to take a movie and I wouldn't say that Female Trouble is a perfect film, you know? But part of what I love about Female Trouble is that it is imperfect, right? So it's this challenge that's really tough. So this was not easy for me, but Female Trouble, I mean, it has the best line of dialogue ever written in any John Waters movie. And that is a fact, which is, I wouldn't suck your lousy dick if I was suffocating and there was oxygen in your balls. I mean, the way Mink Stole says that, and the way that Divine chuckles, to me, that's the most John Waters moment. A stepfather telling a stepdaughter to suck his dick, and then that's her response. It is subversive, transgressive, brilliant, queer, punk. It is all of those things. So for that alone, I have to choose Female Trouble. But God, Hairspray is great. And real quick, both these films might be Divine's best performances, right? Like, one is her at the best of Divine, the drag, insane monster, and the other is her as an actor. You know, her performance as Edna Turnblad is moving. It's perfect. It's camp, but it's real. It's earnest. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's character transformation. She goes through a lot in Hairspray because she turns out to end up being supportive of her daughter in a way that she wasn't in the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And it ended up being her unfortunate swan song.
I know.
Yeah. And the other thing I will just say real quick on Hairspray is we haven't talked about, like, if we're talking about social impact, Hairspray's got body positivity before body positivity was even a thing, right? Hairspray has got actual, really talking about what the reality is of race were at that point, when we liked, as I think as Aaron kind of mentioned, like, the boomers tended to be like, oh, no, everything was fine. No, everything was good. It was like, no, actually, it was kind of really fucked up. And John Waters was doing that again before a lot of people were. So it is a great movie. It's an important movie. It says a lot about things. But my rubric for this was, what is the most John Waters of these films? And I have to give it to Female Trouble. I'm sorry, Aaron. I'm sorry.
No, let's see. That's the thing with this is I was like, I don't care if I lose a lot of these because it's like, it doesn't matter to me. I mean,
well, we have to have a show where we argue, right? Like, that's the whole point.
Otherwise, it'd be very boring.
I know.
Aaron's often the one taking one for the team here. So kudos to you, Aaron.
Yeah, that's real Female Trouble.
That's
right there.
Yeah.
All right, so we will move Female Trouble into the final two. Finally, in round two, the panel is split again, this time between two one seeds, 1994 Serial Mom and 1972's Pink Flamingos. Johnny, show us why you're the filthiest panelist alive as you argue that 50 plus years later, Pink Flamingos remains divine. Peaches, tell us why the rules of fashion haven't changed and the Serial Mom remains in style, unlike white shoes after Labor Day. Peaches, please go first.
Okay. Again, really, really tough. And I feel like I might be in the Aaron seat here because I think in the most obvious ways, it should be Pink Flamingos, right? Like, it changed culture. It changed midnight movies. It's almost sacrilege for me to not honor the mother of all midnight movies. You know, I've built an entire career around being a performer who celebrates midnight movies. That being said, I feel like because Female Trouble is so wonderful in that sort of collection of Dreamlander films, I was putting Female Trouble up on this high pedestal. And then I was looking at the Hairspray and post-Hairspray films. And for me, Serial Mom is just a perfect piece of celluloid. It's got all the stuff that I love about John, all the rotten, subversive, wicked humor, but it stars a bona fide movie legend and one of her greatest performances. I really believe it, you know?
Yeah,
I
totally.
think to get Kathleen Turner to show up in Baltimore and deliver one of the best John Waters performances and one of her best performances is a real feat. And so for that reason alone, you know, I kind of, in my vision of the world, I was putting Serial Mom and Female Trouble up there really, really high, which is why Pink Flamingos, for me, just felt tiny, teeny smidge behind Serial Mom. It's weird to say, but yeah, that's my argument.
Pussy Willows, Dottie. Johnny, talk to us about Pink Flamingos.
See, I have the opposite issue right now because I'm like arguing for Pink Flamingos when it's like, for me personally, Serial Mom is like one of my top movies of all time.
Yeah.
So like I mean, first of all, it's because this is an audio. I'm juror number 8. I mean, that's my name on here, and I figure it's like when I was in Towson, Maryland this summer. I took a trip before going to the airport and stopped at the house and took a picture of Beverly Sutphin's house because I was just like, I'm here, and I took a picture of Mrs. Ackerman's house because it was right next door. But I think, like Peaches, you said, I mean, Pink Flamingos is the original like late night movie. That's what people went to see. It was because nobody else would see it unless it was after dark in very shady theaters at very odd times and places you didn't necessarily want to go. I mean, Babs Johnson was not going to play in the multiplex. It just wasn't going to happen. The winking asshole was not going to happen at the Main Street double feature. You weren't going to have Babs eating dog shit on a normal screen where next door you can go and see the new Jimmy Stewart movie. It was never going to happen, but because he paved his own way, and Pink Flamingos is like unlike any movie that came out before, it just broke the mold in a way that very few other movies have. I mean, I honestly could I could have my own episode just talking about Serial Mom and like the parts of my life that have crossed with that. But if we're talking about the best John Waters movie, I think I'm going to have to give it to Pink Flamingos just because of the way it changed the cinema zeitgeist from that point on.
Aaron, is it going to be Pink Flamingos or going to be Serial Mom for you?
For me, it's Serial Mom. This is my absolute number one favorite for many, many reasons. And also, not just Kathleen Turner, but also Sam Waterston doing this other, being in this movie too. Their sex scene is so amazing. And I was just rewatching it last night, and just every second of this film is so brilliant and such a brilliant send up of so many things that he has done before of, the suburbs and the suburban moms, and even like true crime now. You could even look at it now as like people that are obsessed with true crime and all of that. And also as a person whose favorite genre in the world is horror, having a send up of people that, like were, into horror and how people look down on that. And all of that was great too. And also as a person who was a former manager of Blockbuster Video, the scene when she beats her while watching Annie and she kills her and says rewind was so liberating. And because that was a big, big, huge issue working there was, of course, the rewinding. So for me, that was like cathartic watching someone get murdered, especially while watching Annie. So
with a leg of lamb, correct?
Yes,
she beats her to death with a leg of lamb, and I was just like, this is
Lest we
fucking
forget,
great.
Watching Annie while her dog cleans her toes and feet, and she's having the dog lick them, and she's saying, "Get them all wet." It's just so amazing.
I cannot hear the song Tomorrow without at the end going, rewind!
It's every kill is satisfying in that film.
It is.
Yes,
and
it
it's
is. Very
also
true.
a throwback to Polyester in many ways because it's another sort of take on a Douglas Sirk. Like the way that it's lit for what's essentially a horror movie is hilarious because it's all these sort of bright yellow, really, melodramatic, romantic suburban lighting. It's just brilliant.
And where else are you going to get a soundtrack that has L7 and Barry Manilow on?
Good times.
L7 has the camel toes. I mean,
Camel lips.
I think the obvious answer here would be Pink Flamingos, but I agree with everything that Peach has said. Like, if I'm stacking it up against Female Trouble, I think Female Trouble does everything that Pink Flamingos does better. The issue is that it came first, so you have the primacy argument, which Johnny was talking about. And would we be having this conversation about John Waters had Pink Flamingos not become what Pink Flamingos did, right?
Very
it
true.
really was the big bang for not just John Waters' career, but like, I think it did change cinema in a lot of ways.
It changed culture. It changed.
Yeah.
Remember, Mink and David in this movie did not have access to hair dye to make their hair that color. This is pre-punk. One of the things we talk about in the Idol Worship show is that Mink had to bleach out her hair and then use accountant's ink, red ink, the stuff that you filled the pads with to make her hair that red. David had to take the blue felt out of magic markers to make his hair blue. This was groundbreaking. All of it, the looks, all of it. So it like I mentioned, I don't remember if it was this or in the Patreon episode, but this is the movie that's been entered into the Library of Congress, as being culturally significant. It's also a movie that screens on Turner Classics Movies, unedited.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. This movie is astounding.
It is. And I agree with all that stuff. I think what Serial Mom does is it is quintessentially still a John Waters film.
Mm-hmm.
His DNA is all over it, perhaps splattered on a screen, which is playing Annie while a woman is being beaten to death with a leg of lamb. But it is also emblematic of the fact that he was embraced and he did have mainstream success. It's kind of like the realization of both of those elements, the subversive as well as the commercially kind of successful. And I think that is why I'm putting it forward here, which gives us 3 for Serial Mom, 1 for Pink Flamingos, and a final 2, believe it or not, of Female Trouble versus Serial Mom. So that's it, folks. We're going to take a quick break to devour a bunch of hard-boiled eggs with Demure Blossom Edith Massey. We'll be right back after these ads.
Another email newsletter? God, I know. But listen, the Great Pop Culture Debate newsletter, it's actually useful. Give us 3 minutes of your lunch break and we'll tell you all the coolest new stuff in pop culture that week. The biggest new movies in theaters, the hottest new albums about to drop, the TV shows everyone will be talking about. We bring it to you every ball. It's all thriller and no filler, and you'll also find out all the fun news from the podcast. Subscribe today at greatpopculturedebate.com/subscribe.
And we are back with the final 2 of our best John Waters film debate. At this point in the show, I always like to take a step back and see if it shook out the way I expected it to. Nope, It does not. But I love where we are. I also like to add at this point that no matter which option wins, we're celebrating all of these entries. I hope nobody gets salty about what comes next. We have an unexpected final two of Female Trouble, a 2 seed, versus Serial Mom, a 1 seed. And we're just going to go around the horn here. Aaron, is it going to be Female Trouble or Serial Mom for you?
I'm going to keep on my, being the opposite of everybody probably, and I'm going to go for Serial Mom.
All right. Johnny Minogue, is it Serial Mom or Female Trouble for you?
My 15-year-old self would not be able to look at myself in the mirror and go, how did you not pick Serial Mom? I'm going to pick Serial Mom just because that's what I viscerally have to do.
Peaches Christ, is it Serial Mom or Female Trouble for you?
It's Female Trouble. It absolutely has to be. I mean, I do think what's interesting, and I do love that this is where we've ended up, because I think we all can agree that Polyester marks the end of a certain era and Hairspray begins the new era of John's movies. And I think that we have landed on the two best from each era.
I agree.
And I think that makes it really, really tough. And I love that Serial Mom has the new era all over it, including Mink, but also Patricia Hearst and Tracy Lords and Ricky Lake. And, there's this new family. But Female Trouble is the OG. It's the original Dreamlanders. And so I have to go with the originals.
Yeah, I hear you. And if I had to choose between the two, I probably would go with Female Trouble. My issue is this: I can't have a tie for the final. I can't. And I'm going to assume that neither of my other panelists are going to switch. And so not to belabor the point, I do think it is very strange that we are probably going to end up with a winner. Isn't it?
So fucked up.
But is it in a
good
way?
I can't even believe this. I don't know. I'm just mortified. No, I actually am excited. I think that this is really interesting, and I think you're going to get some emails.
That's good. I love it. Hate me. But I do want to point out that we are probably going to have a winner here that doesn't have Divine in it. And I think we talked about this in the Patreon for sure, but Divine and John Waters together was this incredible kind of combination where these two, there was nobody like them prior to them that I'm aware of. Maybe there was, outside of pop culture recorded history, but these were two, and I mean, Mink Stoll, the rest of them, like that whole Dreamlander group, that was potent creative energy, anarchistic energy, subversive energy. And to be doing this in the 60s and the 70s when this was not acceptable. Man, you mentioned that this was punk before it was punk. I kept thinking that while rewatching these films for this. And I do think they talk about punk later on in the more Hollywood ones, but punk didn't exist when they were doing this. They invented it. And I think that's so incredible. We really don't have anyone else like John Waters, and that's why I'm glad we're doing this episode. But yes, Johnny?
I will say, I think the Divine part of it, makes sense. I'm going to switch to Female Trouble because I think we have to acknowledge that the John Waters movie would not be the John Waters movie without Divine. I think we have to have Divine at the top. So as much I will watch Serial Mom I'll go out and watch it right now. But I think with those arguments, I think we have to go with Female Trouble. And I agree with everything that everyone said, and I'm going to switch my vote.
Aaron?
I agree. Yeah. I was like, it's not going to sound as sincere now that I say it, but yes, no, I totally agree because to choose one that does not have Divine in it feels kind of sacrilege in a way.
Would you believe that I was manipulating you this whole time to get you to switch your vote?
No, you can't take it back, Eric. You dug your grave, and I hope people send you emails. I hope there are protests outside your home, you're
the new Donald Dasher. That's what you are.
Send me dog shit.
Making us do crime.
Someone's gonna send you a bowel movement. I will say this, that I think one thing that we should acknowledge is that, and I'm so glad, you can tell I'm perking up, I'm so excited, is that drag is so popular right now, it's almost nauseating.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of drag. But we can thank certain folks for paving the way so that people like myself could enjoy, this level of popularity and the backlash that comes along with it. But I think that Divine, especially in Female Trouble, it really changed queer culture for the better. And it really paved a way for us to understand. It's such a beacon. Not that Serial Mom isn't brilliant, but it didn't do that. It didn't change things the way that this movie did, especially for people like myself, and so for all the young queers out there, for all the aspiring drag performers or the current drag performers, I agree with you. Serial Mom is a perfect movie. It's amazing. But its effect on our lives isn't the same as the effect Female Trouble had.
That's a great point. And I do want to say, if you are listening to this and you are a young queer person and you have not seen some of the earlier John Waters films, I really encourage you to turn off this episode and go. Many of them, not all of them, are available for either streaming or purchase. I watched Female Trouble. I bought it on Amazon Prime. Sorry to give Jeff Bezos money, but the bottom line is they are available for you, and you do need, it's Pride Month when this is coming out right now, go and learn your history. You would not be where you were if there's these brave, incredibly brilliant people were not doing what they were doing 50 plus years ago when it was very dangerous to be doing what they were doing. They broke the mold, and that's why we're having this discussion. Johnny, I see you wanted to say something.
Oh, it's because the world of the heterosexual is a sick and boring life.
Amen to that. So there you have it, folks. Our pick for the best John Waters film is Female Trouble. Do you agree? Do you think that our tastes are Mondo Trasho? Tell us how you really feel by leaving a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com, or find us on Blue Sky or Mastodon. While you're there, make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you can hear about what new debates are coming soon, vote in open polls, and even decide on which topics we tackle next. I want to say thank you to my panel. A huge, huge thank you to our special guests, Aaron Marlowe, It's Vits, A Fandom Thing, and Peaches Christ of the Midnight Mass podcast. Thank you both for coming. This was so much fun to do with you. And thank you for listening. If you loved what you heard, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get even more exclusive content and you get episodes a whole day early. We hope you have a good one. And remember, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion. Now, who wants to go to Baltimore?